I would have thought the Democrats doing a retread candidate 4 years later, after she's probably not going to be doing anything for 4 years, is arguably one of the worst hands that they could play.
Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Bedford, and I'm here with managing editor Chris Irvine.
Hey.
Chris, Kamala Harris has announced she is not going to run for governor of California in 2026. She was openly flirting with a bid. Why is she not doing that?
I think the main speculation is that she's probably going to keep her powder dry for 2028. There'd been kind of 6 months of her retreating and licking her wounds. Where did it all go wrong? Did they get anything right? Who's to say? She's clear. There's been also kind of this pressure, I think, from people that want to get into the race, but maybe can't kind of get ahead with things like fundraising and getting a proper footing in. We wrote a story a couple months ago about former Representative Katie Porter in particular, playing a waiting game on that one because they felt that Kamala wasn't, if Kamala got in, then she would presumably be the one to beat. It may be that maybe she feels that the post is simply beneath her. She's gone for the big chair, didn't get it. So perhaps coming back down to earth with California, maybe she just didn't fancy it. There's also, I believe, family considerations as well, and her husband maybe perhaps wanting to get back to work himself. And there's ultimately, though, she just decided it wasn't for her. I mean, funnily enough, the next day she comes out with a book, announcing a big book called 107 Days, and presumably she'll be getting a lot of money for that as well.
Right, books are usually the first step on the multi-year road to the presidency.
Absolutely, yeah.
Has anyone informed Kamala that it's one of the worst ideas I've ever heard for her to try to run for president again in 2028?
I mean, I think that's a very real question. I would imagine that the Democrats, who we have talked multiple times about them kind of being stuck in this neutral gear and trying to find their footing on things, really wanting to kind of wash the stink of 2024 off them. One might argue that Kamala was kind of thrust into that when she shouldn't have been. Maybe she's not entirely to blame for everything. In fact, she's definitely not entirely to blame for everything, and she was kind of a victim of circumstance in some ways. But I would have thought the Democrats doing a retread candidate 4 years later, after she's probably not going to be doing anything for 4 years, is arguably one of the worst hands that they could play.
What does the rest of the Democratic bench look like for 2028?
So I actually think the Democratic bench is really strong. I think you can look at early front runners. Gavin Newsom, the current governor of California, will almost certainly be there. He is constantly fighting the Trump administration. He's constantly out there talking on podcasts and seen as this kind of de facto opposition to Trump. People might find his taste a little bit too much, but then you look at Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who was on Kamala's vice president shortlist, and he ultimately decided not to go there, presumably because he wanted a crack in 28.
Smart choice, apparently.
Yeah, smart choice. I think he is very articulate. A lot of people like him. Seems to be doing a good job with Pennsylvania. Then you've got Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, blue governor in a red state, very attractive. I think Wes Moore of Maryland is a dark horse candidate. He ticks all the boxes. Former, military Rhodes Scholar, very articulate, lots of energy. He doesn't have any of that kind of old guard Democrat on him, and even though he says he's not running, he's going to all the places that you need to go if you're going to run. So I think people have been dismissing the Democrat bench. I disagree. I think it's really, really strong.
I think you're right. I mean, everyone that you mentioned is outside Washington, which I think is important because the Congressional Democrats brand is like absolutely in the toilet. Nobody's going to want to touch people there. But in Washington, you do have some interesting infighting between Democrats this week. Amy Klobuchar, senator, blew up at Senator Cory Booker for the grandstanding that he's been doing. And I wonder if that's part of a sort of a deeper fissure of some Democrats who think they can satisfy their base's needs by actually getting stuff done,
Yeah.
and others who think that they can satisfy those needs just by being loud and angry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always a bit of a double-edged sword there, because they are trying to kind of get attention on stuff, but then it comes across. I think the criticism is that Washington is kind of a grown-up theater kids camp where people like Booker, may have the right intention behind stuff, but he comes across in such a kind of thespian, over-the-top way that people just kind of roll their eyes and ultimately think, who's this for? I don't doubt that Booker's probably got some interest in 28, and I'm sure several other senators and congressmen do as well. Chris Murphy seems to be one that's eyeing things up. But you're totally right. The congressional Democrats' brand is just in the toilet, and I think you really want to kind of get away from that DC, Washington insider stuff that I think has kind of been plaguing them for quite a long time. And Joe Biden, I think, was an ultimate DC insider when he ran. Certainly Hillary Clinton was. Obama wasn't. He came kind of, I know he was a senator here, but he kind of had that freshness, and I think they probably need to go back to that, that prototype in some ways.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more from Chris and the rest of the political team at washingtonexaminer.com.